Charlie Kirk, bizarro stuff. Kirk is responding to reporting from MSNBC. This is from 2022. Not the
clip is not from
not the clip,
reporting,
but the report is. So I don't. He's trying to make some point here. It is. Let's just play this clip.
Okay.
Who's obsessed with the male body? People that want to get fit or the gay mafia? I think the gay mafia is more obsessed with the male body. By definition. The U.S. is comparatively far behind.
We'll pause it for 1 second. By definition, the gay mafia is more obsessed with the male body than people who want to get fit? I mean, what if... okay.
But okay, also just note the use of gay mafia. When someone says trans activists, just substitute gay mafia.
Well, it's weird because like I've heard it mentioned on like Twitter and stuff as like referring to like Peter Thiel and stuff. Like, so it's weird to see this be. I don't quite understand the lexicon.
I mean, they're trying to make gender ideology or being gay. It's just essentially a militant activist group as opposed to just like a immutable characteristic.
The gay mafia would be like a good comic. Like a good comic book.
Honestly, or a band name.
There we go.
Okay. Who's obsessed with the male body? People that want to get fit or the gay mafia? I think the gay mafia is more obsessed with the male body. By definition. The U.S. is comparatively far behind because they are establishing fight clubs of MAGA far-right extremists. Continues to say, again, this article should be shocking, but it makes...
Pause it. I mean, this is an article he's citing from over a year ago. This is March 2nd, 2022. It appears the right has taken advantage of pandemic at-home fitness trends to expand its decade-plus radicalization of physical mixed martial arts and combat sports spaces. Now, that's not like... They're not talking about Zumba classes. They're talking about, like... fighting and like literally just like combat sport spaces. This is
and this is evident to anybody. There's a great show, a podcast called Guys, and they did an episode on karate guys, and the people said like when we were kids, I wasn't in karate, but it was more of like a if you're getting bullied, you join these martial arts to like defend yourself, and now it's completely flipped. It's like you learn this shit so you can kick the piss out of somebody who you want to dominate.
To the extent that we have any encroachment from like sports into the political cultural sphere, like online, right? Like, wasn't that guy the guy who's like the child trafficking? Wasn't he like one of those fighter guys?
Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Joe Rogan.
Yep,
and
Rogan, yeah.
What's the guy that the UFC guy? Dana
White.
Dana White.
I mean, all of these, like, it's not. I mean, this is almost like obvious.
Yes, like sporting organizations that are more centered around traditional masculinity and like traditional presentations of masculinity trend right. Wow.
All right, and so here is Charlie Kirk going back 18 months essentially to get this article from MSNBC.
Basically, because Elon noticed it on Twitter.
Oh, is that what it was?
They want men to become metrosexual betas of low testosterone that are androgynous consumers that sit on their tail all day long, that have no muscle mass, no desire, no purpose. They want you depressed, they want you weak, and they want you easily controlled. They don't want you to ask questions when they make bad decisions.
Pause it for 1 second. Just so you know, speaking as a weak metrosexual who rarely gets off the couch, I mean, I professionally ask questions.
Yeah.
There's not a one-to-one relationship between that.
Well, I mean, maybe have you been taking your tea? That might be offsetting it. That makes you more inquisitive and manly.
I'm not quite sure about my T levels, but I'd be shocked if they're higher than average for someone my age. I'll tell you that right now. But go ahead. I mean, it's weird. It's like this is like a sort of the Jordan Peterson space. Maybe there's a sense that like Jordan Peterson has sort of left the building a little bit. Maybe there's some space in this space. I don't know. Because I feel like I just saw Alex Jones do this has also sort of been his beat a little bit too, right? Like,
Yes.
they're trying to make the frogs gay and go ahead.
Of low testosterone that are androgynous consumers that sit on their tail all day long, that have no muscle mass, no desire, no purpose. They want you depressed, they want you weak, and they want you easily controlled. They don't want you to ask questions when they make bad decisions. They don't want you to rebel against their
Boss.
authoritarianism.
Oh.
They don't want a disagreeable society. The Great Reset relies upon the masculine firewall, the masculine bulwark to be obedient or abolished. So they label it as toxic masculinity. And God only knows the parabens and the crap in our food. By the way, a story came out last week. 50% of our water supply is poisoned. Toxic. You can find it. This was in the Wall Street Journal, by the way. 50% of our water supply is toxic.
Government do that?
Somebody has to explain why testosterone rates are down 500 points over the last 30
I'm
years.
sorry. Can you just pause it for a second? First of all, those testosterone rate things, I think, like, there's been some stuff called into question about that. But that was a study about PFAS.
Yeah.
Well, he's talking about the
50%.
50% of PFAS.
That's true.
And we should be clear. This is something that has been public knowledge, as far as I know, for a long time. We've talked about PFAS. I have been covering this for probably close to 8 years via the tort proceedings that have been going on. The C8 case, one of the biggest ones. But to be clear, the water supply is full of PFAS because of corporate malfeasance and a lack of stringent regulation on these things. Every other segment Charlie Kirk probably did that day and maybe that week or the month runs completely contrary to solving or preventing such a problem. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep parabens out of food, I have another suggestion. Let's fund the FDA and the USDA, and let's have greater regulation about our food supply. Yeah. Or is that the nanny state? I mean, it's one or the other.
Yeah. Well,
Just to respond to the control thing, like there are. My response would be what Charlie Kirk wants, and the reason he was celebrating, say, the rise of interest rates and making the people who don't want to work have to go to work, is he wants you to be controlled by a boss. So like this sort of nefarious, they want to control you by
the
making
Great
you
Reset,
lethargic and all that.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk wants you immiserated financially, so you have to go serve any area capitalist.
yeah, I mean, the Great Reset is a right-wing, essentially, conspiracy theory at this point that like came out of COVID. But I mean,
to help obscure like things we're talking about with the Harold Meyerson piece, which is like actually like there were first of all, there's a lot of corporate giveways during COVID and stuff like that, but actually certain things we did toward stimulating the economy was actually really good and had good effects. We just need to follow up on it.
But like this is how it really melds into what we were talking about yesterday about trans people, is that when he talks about like lowering testosterone rates, this is why the transphobia towards trans women in particular is so interconnected with misogyny. If you have a penis or were born assigned male at birth, essentially, and you're transitioning to female, that's not your identity, according to these freaks. It's essentially a part of a grand conspiracy by the globalists, Jews, whatever, to weaken America, to make you more docile, because the strong men are all transitioning and they don't have the levels of testosterone in their bodies. And so, like, everything that butts up against the gender binary, and particularly like traditional representation of masculinity, that is a part of a globalist conspiracy to weaken everybody, as opposed to it's just like we're challenging traditional power structures, and that's good.
Let's continue here.
50% of our water supply is toxic. Somebody has to explain why testosterone rates are down 500 points over the last 30 years. Average testosterone rate of our grandparents' generation, around 800. Average testosterone rate of a male now, 230. What has changed?
Well, I can tell you one thing off the top of my head. I mean, I haven't even looked into this, but how long people live.
Oh, yeah.
When you when people live, when men live longer, they're going to have less testosterone. But I haven't even looked into it. But that's just even if it was to believe that they were measuring average testosterone rates in the same way 40 years ago and the way they are today. But continue.
What has changed? Does anyone have a theory? Can't even say it. The crime of noticing that makes you a ultra right-wing white supremacist. But yes, this article on the surface is warranted of mockery. But it's actually Cynthia Miller Idris is an author and expert on extremism. Yeah, I'm sure she's a wonderful wife. She looks like a feminazi on steroids. Holy moly.
I'm sure she's a wonderful wife.
He's being sarcastic because he's saying that maybe she might not have a traditional white presentation of her gender. I don't know. I don't know who that person is.
No idea. She's a wonderful wife. That's not like my first thought about like a woman.
I mean, you can't win, right? Like, I feel like, I present in a more like traditionally, my appearance is more traditionally feminine. And I still get constant spam about how like I'm also going to be unmarried. I'm unmarried and have a bunch of cats. So I don't have any cats.
It is interesting though. This is I don't know. I'm not quite clear on what this is about. I mean, some of it is, he lifted from Rush Limbaugh. The feminazi term was coined by Rush Limbaugh, and this is his desire. But I don't know. I get super sus when guys really start talking about their the need to have more masculinity. And they're worried about other people's masculinity. Yeah. And I'm not quite clear. Like, there's something completely incoherent about what he's been saying here. He starts off by saying, I think it's the gay mafia that's obsessed about the male body, and then goes on to basically talk about how we need to really have the pollution, like we need to have like the male body rejuvenated in some fashion or something. I'm not.
This is their way to connect conspiracy theories about COVID and trans people and the Great Reset essentially being a mass like conspiracy theory about pharmaceuticals being a part of some sort of globalist plot to feminize everybody, or to make people weaker. It's anti-expertise, it's anti-medicine, and it's all about I think it's inject also yourself with tea and go to the gym and pro
testosterone replacement therapy is what I get. It is, but I mean it's odd. It's just an odd. It will be fun to watch where this goes. Charlie Kirk also. To be clear, every time they argue stuff like this, they are reinforcing the concept, I think unwittingly, that gender, what is a man, what is a woman, is a social construct. Yeah, if men can be, as he's saying, like made less masculine, less manly, then he is acknowledging that this is a social construct. Yep. If he thinks, and we've gone through this with Matt Walsh, talking about hockey's not a manly sport, or, when all of these guys say, she's not particularly womanly, they are acknowledging that they also perceive gender as a social construct. Because if you can be a female but not womanly, and you can be a male but not manly, then you are conceding that gender is a social construct. And it's just that they don't want it. They don't want it to be what they don't want it to be. That's what their issue is, not that they know that gender is fluid. They just have an issue with its fluidity.